Today is Wednesday, February 3rd, 2010. My name is Juliana Nykolaiszyn, along with Tanya Finchum with the Oklahoma State University Library. And we're in Arlington, Oklahoma, interviewing Ola and Charlotte Fouquet. This interview is being conducted as part of the Oklahoma Centennial Farm Families Oral History Project. And we're here on the farm, the Deffenbaugh Homestead Ranch. Thank you for joining us today.
You're welcome.
Let's begin by learning a little bit more how your family came to Oklahoma.
I might have to refer you to my wife, but C.D. Deffenbaugh, his dad, David Deffenbaugh, homesteaded in Crescent, Oklahoma. And in 1889 and 91, Uncle John and C.D. Came here and homesteaded this property. And that was after a result of them harvesting bones in here and knew what they wanted, and they didn't want to ruin horses coming for the land in the run, and so they proceeded to look up the boys that had the stakes or whatever identification they used to come back to Guthrie with, and they found them and purchased it, and we don't know the exact amount of money they paid.
Well, tell me about harvesting bones.
I have no clue.
What kind of bones are we talking about?
Buffalo and deer.
Buffalo bone.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what would they do with the bones?
Sell them. They was a marketable item.
Interesting. And the original acreage of the land?
Uncle John had 160 and Grandpa C.D. had 160, so it's 320 acres.
Okay. And tell me about some of the original structures that you know of that were on the property.
Well, C.D. Had a one-room rock house on the north side of that would be 1913-6 in the northwest quarter, and the Fuquays lived across north of that. And so Grandma Fuquay, when C.D. was courting my grandma, he would carry his shirts over for my Grandma Fuquay to iron her shirts, his shirts, while he was courting my grandma. That's that. And then C.D. lived in a dugout here in 2013-6. And the original house across the road was down on the south side. It was a two-story house, and it burnt in around 24, 25, somewhere.
Right after your grandpa died.
That's right. He
21,
died in
right?
26, so it'd probably be 27 long in there. Grandma then was at a pie supper, and the house caught on fire while they was at the pie supper. She had quite a struggle. She lost her husband and then lost the house, and that's quite a bit to go through.
So they lived in the garage until they got the
Yeah,
house
till
rebuilt.
they got this house over here built.
And what about barns?
Oh, the granary and the old barn that's across the road in 1913-6 is the original that Grandpa built, and then my step-grandpa, Wyckoff, constructed a barn around that and made a shed on it, but the old granaries is still at the original that C.D. built years ago.
Okay. And as far as early crops, animals, any idea?
They had shorthorn cattle, I know that, and I'm sure they grew a lot of cotton.
Cotton was what kept the farmers alive around here until until the land was ruined, basically.
Lincoln County is basically cotton country back in them days.
So what are some of your earliest memories of the farm? Where were you born?
I was born on the 160 south of here. It was the north half of the southeast quarter of 1913-6, and it was the old shoe call place, and my mother and dad bought that from leasing royalty on this 80 here, which is the east half of the northeast quarter, yes.
And your mother inherited this 80 when
yes.
Her father passed
Her
away.
father passed away. So they used the finances from the leasing of this to help purchase that 80 down there.
So as a little boy, do you remember coming up to see Grandpa
Oh,
on
yeah,
this 80?
picking cotton? 4-acre patches, cotton patch. Cully Duncan, he's always over there driving his old horses, and I won't say what he said.
I'm telling about when you and Joe Don were trying to drive the car over the hill.
Oh, we had no Model A, and my brother, we'd flip the seat down and
How old were you?
drive it. Oh, I don't know. He was probably 12, 11 or 12, and go up to see Grandma Fuquay. And so we come over the hill here in front of the house here, and my brother said, I'm going to let it coast down the hill. Well, he did, but it had too much slack in the steering wheel, and he lost it and ended up in a plum thicket, high centered on rocks, and scared the living daylights out of me. I run up to Grandma Rosie's and said, "We've wrecked the Raleigh." She asked me about that from then on. I just thought we destroyed the old model. Didn't even scratch the silly thing. She come down, pulled us off. We went on to Grandma's house, Grandma Fuquay's house.
Grandma Fuquay lived at the corner here. Grandma Rosie, his mother's mother, lived here, and his mother and dad and he and Joe lived this house right down the road.
So family was really close by.
Oh yeah, and all my kinfolks come to see Grandma, and so we didn't know everybody knew their cousins, and later on in life I found out a lot of cousins don't even know one another, and everybody comes to Grandma's house, and so we knew everybody as cousins.
So what were some of your early chores?
Oh my goodness, slopping the hogs and feeding the chickens, I guess, would be part of it.
Tell them about your skunk.
Oh, we had a pet skunk one time and a runt pig that we fed together, and they was pretty good buddies, and we had a lot of fun with them. Had a cousin that didn't handle the skunk quite right and got paid for that.
And here's your billy goat.
Oh yeah, we had a pet goat. We just put it in a hog pen with the hogs, and they had self feeders. So the little goat, it was a runt that Mr. Earlybaugh had gave us, and that goat got a lot of attention. We'd run around the old lay hog house, and the goat wouldn't keep up, and we'd run in the house, and then the goat would bay and bay and bay and crawl up on top of the house and run back and forth. Quite a little sight. We had a lot of fun with him.
So I have to know, what's the proper way to handle a skunk?
Very gently.
Very gently.
I mean, that just seems like a lose-lose situation.
That one incident was the only time I remember that skunk ever stinking anybody up. We had a lot of fun with that skunk and the pig, though. Probably had names, but I don't remember them.
And where did you go to elementary school growing up?
Arlington, Oklahoma.
Did you have a one-room school?
It was a two-room school. Mostly, the way I remember it, was used as a one-room school. We had an extra room. But, yeah, we walked 1.5 miles to school.
And you were...
I spent 9 years there, if that tells you anything. Mom didn't think I'd learned enough the first year, so she asked me, she said she'd buy me a gift if I would take that over again. Well, it didn't make me any difference. I was ready to go. We're just going to school. So I took the first grade over again. And I still haven't learned anything.
And then when you graduated 8th grade?
Yeah, I was the only one in the 8th grade. And then I got mumps and didn't get to go to my graduation. So I don't know where I'm at.
Well, you had to walk to Arlington, though, to catch the bus to Prague when you went to high school.
Yeah.
Still had to walk that 1.5 miles.
Until about senior year, they started kind of sacrificing, bringing it part of the way. Most of the time, of course, we'd cut across the pasture and save a little bit. We had our little trail across the pasture, and I remember one time the ice storm come up. It was slick as blazes, but I was determined I was going to go to school, so I went, and it done been turned out, and nobody let me know, so I was the only one that showed up for school.
What was the time you stayed with Lee?
Oh, that was snowstorm. The snowstorm came up, and brother and I, started home, and we had the old crank and snort telephone, just like the one here on the wall. And so Lee Hillman called Mom and asked her if we could stay all night. And Mom said yeah. And so Lee and Eddie didn't have any children at all. And they just thought that was the greatest thing they ever had, because me and my brother got to stay all night with them.
And was she the teacher then?
No, no, that was after she had quit teaching.
So your mother, was she a housewife, or did she have a profession?
She was a housewife. Good one.
Okay. What type of foods do you remember her cooking?
All good.
Well, that's a good answer. What were some of your favorites?
Oh, Lance, blackberry cobbler. Anything sweet, you know. I had a little sweet tooth, so
And blackberries grow wild around here, so.
And I didn't like gravy for some reason when I was young. And Grandma always said, "You'll come to it. You'll come to it." And I did.
Big garden?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, most of what they ate was either canned or butchered on the place.
Mm-hmm.
We had the hog pen south of the house, and I can't fathom that, but we didn't think anything about it. We walked across the garden to the hog pen, and that's where the goat was at with the hogs. And we had over 100 head of hogs at one time.
Wow.
Now, when he's saying there was something unusual about the hog pen south of the house, is back then you didn't have air conditioning, so you raised the windows to stay cool. The wind always blew out of the south.
So you had quite a smell going on.
I didn't notice it.
Probably
Didn't
why
think
you couldn't
anything
smell a
about it.
skunk.
That's true.
It was normal.
Yeah, it's part of growing up on the farm.
That's right.
And your father was a farmer?
He started out trying to farm and bought a 1948 farm all, and didn't take him about 2 years to decide he wasn't going to raise a family farming, and so he started carpentering.
Mm-hmm.
And I've still got the 40 model farm all over across the road.
Of course, he still farmed. He just was carpentering.
Yeah, he farmed, and then when Joe and I got a little older, we puttered around farming a little bit. But
Tell her how you used to raise the mowing machine.
oh, the old mower was a rear mounted mower on that hay farm all, and the old lever to raise and lower it was over the wheel, and I don't know how Mom ever consented for us to doing that, but we had to put our little old rear on that handle to push it down. We were so small we couldn't do it, the strength of our arm. So I look back and think, my lands, I wouldn't let one of my kids do that.
So was Grandpa Fuquay always a farmer, or did he also have another profession?
I'd never seen either one of my grandparents or grandfathers because they passed away before I was born.
Oh, okay.
And Grandpa Fuquay, he excuse me, him and his brother George come into Kansas and mined. They was teenagers when they came from France, and so they was mining in Kansas and Missouri, and so their sister came down and homesteaded the place that Dad grew up on. And
Virginia, do you remember her last name?
no, I can't remember her last name. Virginia was Grandpa Fuquay's sister, and she's the one that started out homesteading, and then she moved to Sand Springs. And I started to tell you about George and Frank. George was my grandpa. I got it all mixed up. George and Frank, Uncle Frank, they'd take turns coming down and farming. That's before they was married. And so once they got married, their wives didn't agree on the same house, so they had to do something different. So Grandpa George bought Virginia, his sister, out and moved down there. And so then Frank stayed on the northwest quarter of 1713-6, and Grandpa took Virginia's place, which is the southwest quarter of 1713-6. And they had a vineyard, they had made their wine, and they had the biggest barn in the community. They had Red Cross dances in the barn.
And they came over from France.
They was teenagers when they came over, yeah. But I never did see either one of my grandfathers. Had step-grandfathers.
I was going to say, poor Grandma Fuquay, she's out here all by herself. She's tending to the land herself, or does she have help?
Oh, my dad, the boys, they had four
sons.
boys.
Okay.
And so the boys more or less took care of the farm.
Okay.
was the house heated in the where you grew up?
Where I grew up,
Mhm.
oh, there's no kerosene heater. I imagine it was a wood stove when I was very small, but the one I remember is the old kerosene heater.
And did it make it to your room in the wintertime, the heat?
Oh no, we shut that off. Bedrooms wasn't heated. You covered up with quilts.
You didn't have to worry about the water freezing because you didn't have plumbing.
Had a water bucket.
It was a little cool going to the bathroom in the middle of the night because you went to the outhouse. But
Our cousins from Kansas always made fun of our outhouse because it's so far though, so they'd say bye and all that stuff, make a big deal out of it going to the outhouse.
What catalogs did you have out there?
Sears and Montgomery Ward, everybody.
I had to ask.
And the Yellow Pages was your favorite. They didn't last long.
I can see why. It doesn't have the slick pages. Well, tell me a little bit about the water source here on this property.
On this property,
Mm-hmm.
well, we've got a well with submersible pump on it right now.
Mm-hmm. And then back in the day,
Oh, had the windmill, and then let you get that, Charlotte. Then the well went bad, and so Dad had to drill another well, and he put a post in the middle and made a pump jack. The windmill would pump the water on a pump jack type deal. And then after that, he put a regular pump jack on there, and just had a small pipe for for the air compaction on the pressure system. Wasn't like having a big tank or anything like that. But then we got electricity in 1950, I guess, and they got plumbing and all that then.
was it when you got electricity? What were some of the first things done? Lights, appliances, or was it just a slow process?
Slow process. I can remember southwest of us, Johnny Bodie. They got electricity about 2 years before we did, and they had electric lights in the chicken house that they left on all night, and we thought that was terrible because we didn't have electricity, and they had lights for the chickens. So that was kind of a humorous thing. Are you gonna make it back?
yeah, tell them how you studied without electric lights.
Oh, kerosene lamp. You had to have a little kerosene lamp.
Man, you just had to get used to life without electricity. I mean, it must have been like,
We
wow.
didn't even know about
You didn't
electricity.
know. Yeah.
What do you compare it to? That's the thing that fascinated me the most. We got electricity when I was, I don't know, probably about 7 or 8. And first thing you noticed is you never knew that your kerosene lamps were that dim until you got an electric light bulb, and then boy, you wondered how you ever studied with a kerosene lamp.
You had a kerosene heater, and then when you took a bath, the old wash tub was back in the corner, and everybody took a bath. If you was the last one, there's a little raunchy.
You remember the tub number? What number?
Number
it
2
was?
tub.
Number 2.
Yeah. Might have been number 3, but I think it was a number 2 tub that we took a bath in. Some people were modern. They had that long tub. We never did have one of those.
So, in the pecking order with your brothers, how old are you? The oldest, youngest?
I was the youngest.
You were the youngest. So did you get to go first when it came time for a bath?
I don't remember that much in detail.
Or did they say, you get to go last?
I'm afraid I don't remember that much about it. I can remember it happening, but I don't remember that much. But I do remember it got a little scummy if you last in line.
Well, when the farm came into your family's possession, what were some of the first things you started doing after Grandma passed away?
Grandma. Let's see, Grandma Fuquay. Let's start there. I was on the bus east of Prague, which is about 7 miles from here, when I seen the smoke going up from her 2-story house burning. And so she thought she had insurance to bill back just like it was, and come to find out she had $1,000 worth of insurance. So she ended up living the rest of her life out in a 2-room house. They had money enough to build 2 rooms, and that's what she lived the rest of her life in. Now, Grandma Rosie was a different deal. That was my mother's
What CD was
mom.
how old when he passed away?
I'm not sure about that, hon. But Grandma Rosie, she lived to be 97, and we purchased the farm from her in about, what, 64? We married in 63, so it's about 64 when we purchased the farm from her. And she lived in a house, and we moved a trailer house in and lived in that 11 years. And then the house got too much for her, and so she lived with my mother and brother until we could get the house redid here that she lived in. We added a room and did quite a bit of work to it. And then when we got that completed, we moved into that, and we moved the trailer down to my mom's place for Grandma to live in the rest of her life.
And that whole time were farm operations still going on, running cattle?
Oh, we was running cattle then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, brother and I both worked at Tinker, so had to have something to finance a cattle deal.
Now, when his dad passed away, you were how old? 16?
I was a freshman in high school when Dad passed away. Let's see, I have to think on that a little bit. It was rough.
Tell him about the dairy.
After Dad died, Walter Starks kind of was promoting dairies back then, and so Mom built a dairy barn, and my brother and I borrowed money and bought cows, and we dairied up to the time I went into service, which is about 57. Joe and Mom still ran the dairy after I went to the service, but Joe was working out at that time over at Shawnee, Johnco, I think it was. And after, I don't know, probably close to a year in the service, he wrote and asked me what I thought about selling the cows and all that, because it was just too much for him. And so they actually sold the cows, and when I came back, well, he hadn't started in the beef business, but I had promoted it a little bit, and we got into Hereford business, and that's where we started into the cattle business, was with Herefords, and then we drifted off to Angus, Limousine, Simmental, and right now, before I get too old, I want to go back to the Herefords, so I've got a full, I think we got about 25 registered Herefords with a black bull on them right now.
Wow. So how many head total right now do you have?
Oh, I don't know, there's calves out there, there's probably 35, 40 heads, something like that.
But you did your real farming
Oh,
when you were
yeah.
in the dairy. So tell
When
me
we
about the
was in-
land you leased. And
Yeah, when we was dairying, excuse me, when we was dairying, brother and I was farming about 6 farms. We was growing small grains, and that kept us out of the beer joint, so we didn't have any trouble. Mom didn't have any trouble with us running around or anything. We had our hands full. That was a full-time job.
had to get up and do the milking before you went to school.
Oh,
Joe was
yeah.
out of school then, wasn't he?
Yeah, Joe was out of school, but we'd get up at 4:30 and do the milking before we go to school. And then Mom, I think, cleaned the dairy up after that I got off to school, and him too when he was in school. But let's see, he had graduated, I guess. No, he hadn't graduated when we went in the dairy business. I don't think. I'm a little hazy right in there.
Well, that dairying takes a lot of work. I mean, this is
Oh.
before automation, I'm guessing.
We had electric milkers.
Okay.
And when the electricity was off, you could use the vacuum off of the tractor engine to run the milkers. And so if the electricity was off, we'd park the tractor by the dairy barn and run a line into the vacuum line and keep the milkers going that way.
And did you have to worry about pasteurization or federal regulation?
Oh, we was grade A dairy.
Uh-huh.
So we had the Townley's Dairy in Oklahoma City is who we sold to.
But you put them in cans. You didn't.
Oh yeah, it was in 10-gallon cans. He didn't have bulk. While we was in the dairy, this is when the bulk tanks came in. They started hauling milk bulk, but we never did go that modern. We was still with cans when we was in the dairy business.
And how would you get the cans to?
Oh, there was a dairyman. There was a truck driver that came by and picked them up.
Okay. And then the farming you were doing in addition, were you producing crops to sell?
Yes.
Wheat.
Wheat, oats, rye, vetch, basically,
And how would you get those items to the market?
with a 50 model Chevrolet pickup.
And you took them to.
Took him to
Prague.
Prague to the mill, Walter Starks, and Walter he was an old ag teacher, became a farm advisor at the bank, and then he built the mill in Prague, and he ended up going back to OSU and teaching economics, and became adjutant general of the state, and did all right. Walter was a good old boy, though, very good man.
So you were farming 6 properties? 6 farms?
Yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Tell me about it.
When did you sleep?
Oh, you got a little sleep in. I was young back then.
Well, tell me a little bit about your family. I'm going to put you on the spot. You ready?
Yeah.
How'd you meet your wife?
My father-in-law. We both worked at Tinker, and she had finished OSU, and you'd pick up here, and you can tell that.
Well, he and my dad were riding together. My dad lived just south of Wellston, and he lived here, and they were looking for someone to ride with, and so he started riding with my dad. And when I got out of school, I was looking for an apartment in Oklahoma City, so I asked my dad if I could borrow the car to go and find an apartment in Oklahoma City, and he said, yeah, you can take the car when we drive to Tinker to work, and then you can take the car and then you can pick us up. What I didn't know was that each one of them had a certain spot they sat. You had, what, full load, 5?
Yeah, there's 5 of us, I think.
5 of you there. And so when I got in the car, they had done some shuffling around so that I wound up sitting beside him on the way to Tinker. And that's how we got met. That's how we met.
And did you have a farm background?
Yes.
She's a cotton picker.
I said
Cotton chopper?
They started using automatic cotton picking machines when my sister and I left home.
Of course.
She's from north of Verdon.
Yeah, I was raised in Pocasset Verdon area.
Cotton picking is backbreaking. Just seriously. But did you just not think anything of it? You just had work to do and you did it?
Well, actually, it paid. Actually, the most work we did, my sister, our dad told us that if we would get his cotton hoed, and when you hoed cotton, you had to not only take the weeds out, but you had to thin the cotton. Mm-hmm. And so he said when we got his cotton hoed, we could hire out to the neighbors. And so as soon as we got Dad's cotton hoed, we hired out to the neighbors. We took the old flatbed truck and headed to the neighbors, and we hoed cotton through the summer. And then really, very rarely did we pick all of the cotton on our home because it was school time, you know. Now my dad did pull us out one time for 2 weeks to pull cotton because he couldn't find any pickers. So that's my experience in cotton.
So when you got married, did you help out on the farms?
We had a milk
There
cow.
was much of an outside farmer other than milking a cow. I always milked cows when I was at home, you know.
We always had a Guernsey cow. We taught all 3 of our daughters to milk a cow before they got to high school.
But as far as tractor driving and all that, I never even got into that very much with my dad. I had an older sister who was a year older than me, and she's the one my dad yelled at. So I didn't have to drive the tractor. So I didn't and he had his brother to work with, who was much more proficient in driving tractors than I was. And so until his brother passed away, well, he and his brother farmed together all the time after we were married. And so I kind of got out of that part, and I just was mostly the homemaker and the gardener.
So tell me about your garden. Big garden? What you grow?
Well, it's pretty big. It wasn't as big as some people's, I guess.
We give vegetables away.
And canned. Mostly of what I canned was green beans and tomatoes. The girls didn't like tomatoes, so I usually just made tomato juice. I canned about 60 quarts of tomato juice. And
relish. You made a lot of relish.
Yeah, 25
relish.
quarts of green beans every year. But not in can as much as his mother did. Although she taught me a lot about canning. My mother canned some, but when I married, of course, his mother was right down the road from us, and so we canned together a lot. We made sauerkraut and canned tomatoes and the corn we froze. We'd harvest the corn and cut it off the cob and put it in the freezer because we had freezers by then.
So where would you store all of the canned goods, Mom and yourself?
Oh, and cellar.
Cellar?
We had cellar.
Still have a cellar in the garage.
Same one?
No, not hardly. Imagine that one down home is full of water. I haven't looked in
His
lately.
mother put in a new cellar, had not
Yeah.
too long before she passed away, and of
But
course the cellar
new is-
across the road is not being used by our kids right now. Our kids live across the road. It's kind of gone to pot, but since we've got a cellar here that's enclosed in the garage, they come over early and sit in the living room just in case there's a tornado, you know. So they were sitting over here when that big one, you know, came through Midwest City and such as that, watching it from on the television, so we could dash. But there was a time when we were over there that we rushed home from lodge, and we rushed home because some people said a tornado was coming, and by the time we got home, the wind was blowing so hard we couldn't get to the cellar. So that's why we appreciate the one that's in the garage, because 2 different times we were in a mobile home and the wind was blowing so hard that we couldn't get to the cellar. The one time we got to the milk house, which was a rock building. And the other time we just rode it out and came to find out the neighbors a mile west of us blew away. So another house did. They had to run to another house and survived. But
Yeah, the cellar across the road is the original one that I guess Grandma probably had that built
I
after.
remember Uncle Ollie saying that he hauled the rock for it.
Yeah,
And
and it's got a drain in the bottom down the hill. It's set up on top of the hill, so it's got a drain in it. So it's a real good cellar. Probably a better cellar than what we've got it here in the garage. But you just have to take care of those things if you're going to use them, because spiders and everything else gets in them.
So
Yeah,
how long did you work at Tinker before you went to farming full time? I don't know.
Well,
Tell me what happened. What happened with you?
After I came back from the service, I guess I was flunkying around at one thing and another for about a year, and I put in my application at Tinker, and I just wrote out in farm language, you know, what needed to be done, and they didn't like that, so I didn't qualify. So then I said, well, I had an official title in the military. I'll go over to Shawnee and look it up. And I had a lawyer's secretary to type it out officially, and they hired me on the spot, and I worked about 26 and a half years there, and retired, plus my military time with 29 years and something. I retired in '88, and I've been retired since that time, which is about 22 years.
Not too bad.
which was what, let's see, it would have been 6 years after his brother passed away, and so now he was farming by himself and taking care of his mother, and it got to be a little more difficult than it was with his brother helping him.
Yeah.
So did you have outside help at all at any time, or?
Yeah, I hired Roy Ladd, neighbor, worked for a couple of years for me, and brother passed away in '84, and I retired in '88, and in that time, Roy worked for 2 or 3 years for me, and then he went to work for Stanley Kohler, the vet, and worked there. And
He just worked part-time now, building fence and such, didn't he?
yeah, Roy's pretty much full time. He was part-time part of the time, but he was from Pennsylvania. You could turn him loose. Mom said when he come over to build fence, it's just like the old days. He just take the tractor and went out and he worked sun up to sundown. And when he got through, why, he went to the house. And you could trust him with anything. He was just like one of the family.
Well, tell me about some of the current structures on the property.
Well, the barn is still over there. The wind got a hold of it and took 2 sides out of it, but the kids hadn't got around to get that fixed, so they're not quite as enthusiastic
Tell them
as
about the
we are.
chicken houses you inherited when you bought the place.
My step-grandpa, Wakeoff, he had chickens. He raised capons and he had hatching eggs for a park and hatchery at Shawnee. And he also raised minnows. He had minnow beds down here in this pond that's behind us. And we seined minnows, and he sold minnows and crawdads and all that kind of stuff at Shawnee. Sold minnows by the gallon. And we helped him seine that. That was fun.
Helped him clean chicken houses too, I seem like I
Oh,
remember.
lands, yeah, we cleaned chicken houses. That old ammonia about kill you.
But he built all, he was is that what you call it, a mason? Bricklayer. He built
Yeah.
all of his own chicken houses out of
Rock.
the local rock. He'd haul the rock in, and so some of those are still standing.
And some was tile, and some was portable buildings such as that. But he had, I don't know how many chickens he had, but one time there was a lot of chickens across the road.
So what other current structures are still around
Oh,
or in use today?
in use. Oh, the old barn still in use. We built I don't know, it's about a 30 by 20 shed over there, and it's still yet used.
When we built that about.
Oh, in the 80s, I'm sure. And down at the home place where I was born, the old Mule Barn and all that stuff still yet stands down there. The sheds and
Dairy barn still there.
old dairy barn still yet there. It's just solid as it can be. My step-grandpa built that old dairy barn, and I remember he bought some nails somewhere that a lumber yard had burnt, and all the nails was mixed. And we separated those nails and straightened them to build that old dairy barn. We was conservative. You had to be if you survived.
Mm-hmm.
And Mom was building the dairy barn, and Grandpa was building it for just as economically as he could. And Joe and I, we just had to go in debt to buy the dairy cows, and so it was a struggle. But that's what makes you tough and resilient for the day.
Oh yeah.
Before you built the dairy, you went into the dairy. Did you still milked? So you sell the cream.
Oh yeah, we'd had cows that we milked when I was little, and you separate the cream and take it to John Wright's store, a mile and a half north of here, and sold cream and eggs. That was part of the struggles of life back
Groceries,
then.
wasn't it?
And we'd buy a nickel's worth of candy every week, and lands, that'd be a big old sack of candy, a big old sack like that. And that was like peanut brittle and all that stuff. You'd have mixed candy. For a nickel, you got a lot.
So you had to share amongst the brothers?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, brother. I imagine Mom and Dad even ate a little of it, but that was part of it. Yeah.
So there were just two of you.
Yes,
Just two of you.
Brother was 2 years older than me, and unfortunately, he got cancer and melanoma. I think my mom had that situation figured out. He was born in the Fuquay home because Mom and Dad lived with the Fuquays until he was about 2 years, well, shortly before I was born at least. There was about 2 years difference in us, and so they had an old Delco system. And the batteries, the acid from the battery in the basement, Mom said the acid stunk the old house up all the time, and the whole family died of cancer, so we was quite sure that the old Delco system is what resulted in their deaths.
And you mentioned a mule barn?
Oh yeah, so we had the milk barn and the mule barn. That was just two old barns.
You didn't have any mules though when you
Oh
were a
yeah,
kid,
Joe
did you?
and Beck,
Oh,
sure.
okay.
Yeah, we had old Joe and Beck. I remember them.
And what did you use them for?
Oh, Dad farmed with them before he got the A farm all. See, that was 40, so I was just 3, I guess, when he got the farm all. But I remember old Joe and Beck. That's going pretty good. I didn't know my memory's that good.
So how old were you when you got to ride the tractor for the first time?
Oh Lord, I don't know. I remember falling off of a bundle wagon one time, and the tractor rolled back on my head, like scared me to death.
Like scared your
And
family
Mom,
to death too.
But it didn't hurt me. Just scared the living daylights out of me. But fortunately, it didn't hurt me.
So in the 30s, did they do anything in particular to make it through the Depression?
Oh, they was resilient just like all the rest of the people. They was
I don't
tough.
think they hurt as well as much as people who lived. Well, they didn't lose
Well,
their
they
ability to.
they owned the farm, and that was what made a great difference. Renters, was in a different position. when the end of the year come, they had to go somewhere or come up with the rent. And that made it quite a struggle for them. And so I don't think they was hurting all that bad. They raised most of their food and everything, so they survived pretty good.
They taking advantage of any of the WPA programs?
I remember Dad talking about working on Highway 99 when they constructed Highway 99, but I don't think he got in on WPA or CCC's, either one.
They also had an occasional cash crop of pecans. There were enough, what do you call them, wild pecans.
Yeah, they're natives.
Native pecans in their lower pastures that his mother even, I guess, till she was 90, she would go down and pick pecans in the fall.
Oh, yeah.
And talk a little bit about the ponds that might be on the property.
Oh, the old big pond down here that Grandpa cut up into minnow beds was built with horse and slip. And the pond above that pond, I'd imagine the original was built by slips, but we had it cleaned out. Carl Smith came over and cleaned it out. We got married in '63. It was probably in the late '60s when we did that. And then I had a soil conservation pond built on the back side of the place. And then my brother, that was on section 19, no, that's in section 20, I'm sorry. In section 19 here, my brother had a pond built on the north end of this 80, and then when the flood control lakes was built, the Duncans down below us had a flood control lake, and so we got a silt pond built above that, which is a pretty good sized lake. And then Joe had another pond built on that place, so there's 3 pretty good sized ponds down there. And let's see, that's on the farm here in section 19, and on section 20 is where it's got about 3 ponds and then a small pond on the north side over there.
And would you swim in any of those when you were young?
Oh, Lord, yeah. We, over on Deer Creek, that's between here and Highway 99 is where our swimming hole was, and we, the Ray family and us was, at one time, the 2 families was all that kept the little Methodist church together over here. And if they wasn't at our house, we was at their house on Sunday. And we had a swimming hole down on Deer Creek, and one day we was down there fishing. One day we was down there swimming, and Maud and Blant come across the bridge and caught us in the nude down there swimming. And so we got the results of that. Mom said, now there's not going to be any more of that. Shoot.
Well, growing up, what were holidays like? Did you all come to Grandma's, or?
Yeah. Grandma Rosie's house was, in fact, the kids that still got the bench over there that we sat on when our kids, we sold the house and 20 acres to our daughter, and they still have the old bench that I sat on when I was a kid, and all the cousins and everybody come to Grandma's house, and of course Grandma Fuquay's was kind of the same way. Occasionally we'd go to her house, but most of the time it was Grandma Rosie's house.
And your mother still talks about when you'd have 4th of July celebrations and mix up lemonade in tubs.
Oh, well, that,
people come along with her.
That was at Preg, I think, 4th of July.
Yeah.
And they'd mix up a tank full of...
A tub
No, this was a horse tank. I'm not talking about tub. This is a horse tank. And they had dippers around there, and you just come up and get you a drink.
Everybody drank out of
Everybody drank out of the dipper.
And what about Christmas?
Christmas, oh, we always go out and get a cedar tree. And that's about all I can say about Christmas in reality. We always went and got our Christmas tree, and of course all the cousins came in and all that. It was typical Christmas time.
And you still have to do chores?
Oh.
Even if it was a holiday?
Tell the cows it's a holiday.
It didn't matter. The chores had to be done 3 times. It was just something that had to be did. It was part of life.
Well, do you ever remember county agents coming by, or? You
Oh,
laugh.
you bring up a real subject there. County agent, let's see, my daughter told me not to get on these stories. Anyhow,
That's what we want to hear. Yeah.
they had the spring show, I guess it was, and they had a pecan show along with the spring livestock show. And so I went up to had livestock there, and so one morning I went over to the building, the American Legion building, where they had the pecans and everything. And old Merlin Vinson and several of the boys were sitting there eating pecans. And I begged on them. I said, I want some pecans. He said, go in there and get your own if you want some pecans. So, old dumb me, I went in there and got a few off of each plate, you know. And then the county extension agent walks in and said, who are you? And I told him the truth. I didn't lie to him. And he never did punish me or nothing.
Taking
But
pecans off the show plate.
Stealing pecans off the show plates. And I come out smelling like a rose.
That's not too bad. That's not a bad encounter.
But you know what Merlin Vinson became? The boy I was telling you about was eating the pecans. He became head of security at Tinker. I mean, the top. And then he went past that into other security out of Washington, D.C.
Did the county agent ever give you advice about farming or what you should or shouldn't be doing, or did you just not even care or listen to him?
Was it just ag teacher?
No, ag teachers did most of that. The extension agent was a guy we didn't even know. That was always Chandler. That was 25 miles from here. So we didn't know the extension agent that well until I got involved in Cattlemen's Board and Fair Board and all that stuff, and then I got well acquainted with the extension agent.
And do you remember your mom or your grandma being involved with home demonstration agents?
Yeah, they had a club, best I remember, in the
Home
community.
extension
A
club.
home extension club of some type. That
I don't think they ever entered anything, did they?
no, don't think they ever got that involved.
My
but I
mother
don't-
got involved in that somewhat, but I don't think yours did.
I don't think they got all that involved in it.
You mentioned the one pond that was a soil conservation pond. Did you do any other conservation efforts on the land, terracing or?
Terracing was did before I came along. Grandpa terraced, I guess, when they first started terracing, and so that was pretty much. But we've sprigged Bermuda grass. Most of our land is Bermuda grass now, and I serve on the Soil Conservation Board now, so I'm.
And you used the sprigger from the county for?
Well, we did part of it, and part of it we just spread with a pitchfork and disc it in, and part of it we hired sprigged, so it was different circumstance.
So how has farming changed since when you were a young tyke growing up to today?
Well, you don't see much farming around here now. It's just all grass. The farm is a struggle. I look back, my grandfathers had to support the farm with some other occupation. I had to support the farm with some other occupation, and unless you've got lots of bottom land, there's no way to make a living on a farm in reality. It's a struggle. Tough.
And you have 3 daughters,
3 daughters,
and only one still lives?
The middle-aged daughter lives across the road. He works for DHS in Tulsa, works on computers for the DHS, and she homeschools the kids. They've got 2 that they're still home, and 2 of them's in high school now. They've got out of homeschooling, and our oldest daughter married Scott Miller, and they live at Blanchard. And he's the only son-in-law I've got that's interested in cattle and the farming and everything, and he's way off down at Blanchard. So that doesn't work out too well, but he works for John Deere Industrial Credit, and so he's on the road quite a bit, but he's still yet outside the farm, but he likes playing with the cattle, and so he's sticking with the farm life. And the youngest daughter is a first grade teacher at Prague and has been for how many years? 16, I think she told me. and her husband works for the State Highway Department in Oklahoma City.
So all in-state and pretty close. So they come back to the
Oh,
farm
yeah, we're
quite
very
often.
fortunate to have our
We're very
grandkids.
blessed. We talk
Yeah.
to so many people, their kids are all out of state or something, and up until they really, the kids got to be teenagers and they really got too busy, well, they'd always be here, back here. So, and we built this home in, what, 97, 98?
Yes.
And so the kids all come here because we've got the biggest house, and so they all come, and they all used to come in for birthdays and Christmas and Thanksgiving here. And they've gotten so busy now they don't make it quite as often as they did, but they usually
It's
make
more
it.
difficult the older you
They
get.
usually make it
more
4 or 5
grandkids.
times a year anyway.
Yeah.
And they usually have to check with a girl in Blanchard because the others are close enough they could come just about any time. So we've got 8 grandchildren, 4 boys living across the road.
And have they been on the tractor?
Not too much.
Can they milk a cow?
No.
Oh, man.
Keep telling their mother she ought to get a cow to feed those 4 boys, but she knows how to milk a cow. That's probably why she hadn't gotten one.
So where do you see the farm and the land going in the next 100 years?
Oh my, that's too far out. Time changes so fast. Technology doesn't turn me under. I've got a GPS for my tractor, but other than that, cell phones and all this stuff just drives me nuts. I enjoy getting on the computer and playing a little bit, but I can't keep up with technology, and I have not a clue where it's all this. It wasn't nanotechnology. What did Scott tell me last night? Nanotechnology.
No.
I can't even fathom that. They say the cell phone is going to be shrunk, and I can't fathom that.
Because we can't find our cell phone now.
But do you think the farm is going to remain in your family? Is that what you hope, or?
Well, you would hope that they would keep part of it, but I don't want them to feel obligated to.
Mm-hmm.
Other than the son-in-law at Blanchard, none of them takes an interest in it, so I don't know what will happen. We're set up in a trust, and it will go to them, but now that's their decision where it goes from there.
But he's considering already selling his cows and leasing the property because
Yeah,
we do get older.
So today, what's a typical day on the farm for you?
there's not a typical day. Every day's a different thing. I do what I enjoy what I'm doing now. I do what I want to do.
Feed the cows and then go to the coffee shop.
Yeah, I go to the coffee
Well, that's
shop.
not too bad.
I attended the National Cattlemen's Association meeting in San Antonio last weekend. I flew out of Oklahoma City on the last flight after the snowstorm and spent 3 days down at San Antonio and got back on Sunday for a fundraising basketball game at Prague and had a real good time down at San Antonio. So I put 12 big bales of hay out, and they still had hay when I got back.
So it's pretty low maintenance now.
Yes, if it's very heavy, I just can't do it. When I was up Stillwater most a year or so ago, I stopped at the railroad yard and got me some railroad ties because I'd always put railroad ties in for corner posts. And I got them home and spread them where I wanted. And then I had to start digging the holes, and I decided this ain't no good. I can't even handle railroad ties. So I picked them all up, hauled them back to the house, and went and got me some 5-inch treated posts, dug the holes, and set the rascal. But I can't take that railroad tie setting anymore. I can't handle it.
So how early do you get up most days?
7 o'clock's a good time.
Sun's coming up. about
Sometimes 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
When you can't sleep.
When I can't sleep, I get up, get on the computer or something. I get nervous. I have to do something.
then. And Charlotte, you mentioned you graduated from OSU.
Yeah.
In what department or degree?
She's medical.
Microbiology.
Wow.
And
And
then-
what
then-
year did you graduate?
I graduated in '62, and then I trained for a year in medical technology at OU Medical Center. And then I got married and had kids.
Well, you worked a year at St. Anthony.
Yeah, I worked a year
Yeah.
at St. Anthony's.
Yeah.
And I worked a little while at the OU Medical Center.
Well, if I had to choose, I'd probably want to hang out on the farm.
Yeah, well, when we moved out on the farm, it was a little more difficult to go to work.
Tell them about the when we had the party in the city and
Oh yeah, I told all my workmates that I was going to move. So I told them how much we were going to pay for the farm that we were buying, and that we were going to move to the farm. And they said, "Oh my goodness, you're going to spend money like that? You could buy a house here in town and have a swimming pool."
and we have a swimming pool, several ponds. Just jump in. Oh goodness.
Well, is there anything you'd like to make mention of that we haven't asked you today? We've kind of jumped a little bit around.
They all covered it up pretty good.
Yeah, you covered everything pretty much, I think.
Okay. Well, we appreciate you taking time to meet with us and helping us with this project.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
for
you.
your time.
Glad to have you here.